You ever hear a man throw six figures on a tray like it's pocket change just to watch someone squirm? Stay with me, because this isn't a story about language. It's a story about power. And what happens when a man tries to humiliate the wrong woman in the most expensive room in Manhattan? I'll give you $100,000 if you serve me in Chinese. Richard Blackwood's voice cut through the prestige club like a knife. The kind of knife that doesn't just slice conversation, it freezes it. Forks stopped midair. Glasses hovered half raised. Even the pianist in the corner seemed to hesitate, his hands lingering over the keys as if the room itself had held its breath. Then the money hit. Green bills slapped onto Jasmine's silver tray one by one, heavy and crisp, like each one carried its own insult. $100,000 spread across polished metal, not as a gift, not as payment, but as a spectacle, an ugly little stage built in seconds for everyone to watch. Jasmine Williams stood still, 29 years old, black, impeccable black uniform, hair pulled back clean, posture straight even when she was being turned into entertainment for people who spent more on a bottle of champagne than most families spent on rent. And if anyone in that room had bothered to look past the uniform and the tray, they would have seen something strange. Not fear, not desperation, control. Richard leaned back in his Italian leather chair, smug like a man who believed the world existed to respond to him. His skin glowed with the artificial bronze of expensive tanning. His smile was sharp and practiced. "What's the matter, honey?" he asked, voice dripping with mock sweetness. "Isn't $100,000 enough?" He gestured toward the three Japanese investors sitting with him. Men in tailored suits, quiet watches, clean hands. They weren't drunk. They weren't loud. They looked like people who measured everything. Risk, reputation, character. "My friends here will judge whether your Chinese is convincing, Richard," Richard said, tapping the tray like he'd just purchased the right to rewrite her dignity. Around the room, the elite of New York pretended to keep eating. Lobster forks moved. Napkins dabbed lips. But everyone was listening. Every ear was tuned in to the humiliation show Richard was staging like it was a private performance. In public. It was Tuesday night in the financial heart of Manhattan. The kind of night where men like Richard decided million-dollar deals before dessert and called it business. Jasmine looked down at the money. $100,000. More than she made in 2 years waiting tables. Enough to clear her mother's medical bills that had been choking her life for 3 years. Enough to move her younger sister out of a struggling public school and into a safer one. Enough to buy air back into her lungs. But Jasmine knew the money wasn't the point. The point was that Richard Blackwood, 52, real estate mogul, loved reminding people that he could. He could spend $100,000 the way other people spent 20. He could embarrass a black woman in a uniform and watch the room do nothing. He could turn dignity into a bargaining chip and call it a joke. "You know what's best," Richard continued, clapping slowly like he was applauding his own cruelty. "If you fail, you'll apologize right here in front of everyone for wasting our time. Because I bet my fortune you don't even know how to say thank you in Chinese." The investors laughed, but it was uncomfortable, not amused. Forced. Like men laughing at a boss's bad joke because they don't know how to interrupt power without consequences. One of them, Hiroshi Tanaka, the oldest, adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and frowned, visibly uneasy. Jasmine breathed in slowly. Her fingers tightened on the tray until her knuckles went pale. And for a flicker of time, her mind left the prestige club and went back to the person she used to be before survival became her full-time job. Dr. Jasmine Williams. Used to come with lecture halls, conference badges, flights booked by universities, email invitations from international departments. Her world used to be words or syntax, meaning language as precision. Her work wasn't speaking Chinese. It was understanding how language works inside the brain, how cultures encode identity into syllables, how tone shifts meaning, how vocabulary reveals history. Then 3 years ago, one phone call crushed her life. Her mother.
Cancer.
Aggressive. Expensive. Insurance denial letters piled up like snowdrifts. Bills that didn't stop. Procedures not covered. Therapies out of network. Medications with price tags that looked like typos. Jasmine sold everything. The Manhattan apartment she'd worked a decade to earn. Her car. her jewelry, even her collection of rare books she'd spent years hunting down. She took leave from the university, then extended it, then couldn't go back at all. When her mother stabilized, she didn't become fine. She became someone who needed care, therapy, constant monitoring, prescriptions that drained money every month, like a leak you couldn't patch. The debt hit $800,000. Bankruptcy didn't feel like failure. It felt like drowning, then deciding to stop pretending you could swim. Friends vanished when she stopped being useful. Colleagues stopped calling. Her department replaced her. Her title disappeared. Her life became shifts and exhaustion. Day job, caregiver at a clinic. Night job, waitress at the prestige club. Sleep whenever her body surrendered. And now here she was, being treated like a toy by a man who thought money made him smart. Richard was still talking, drunk on his own voice. "Do you know what the problem is with you people?" he said, waving his hand like he was addressing a category, not a human being. "You always want more than you deserve. Always trying to be something you're not." Jasmine blinked once, slowly returning to the room. Eyes to Richard with a calm that made his smile twitch. "I accept," she said. The words came out firm. Clean, not begging, not shaky. Richard's face flickered, just for a split second, as if his brain had expected her to shrink, not stand. "What's that?" he asked, leaning forward. "I accept your proposal, Mr. Blackwood," Jasmine repeated, voice steady. "I will serve you in Chinese. And when I'm done, you will pay me the 100,000 here in front of everyone." A ripple of mocking laughter tried to start around the room, but it didn't catch, because something about the way she spoke didn't sound like a waitress gambling. It sounded like someone agreeing to a test she already knew the answers to. Richard clapped slowly, the sound sharp in the silence. "Perfect," he said. "Then let's make this more interesting." He turned to the investors like he was hosting them at a circus. "Gentlemen, you've just witnessed typical arrogance," he said, smiling wider. "This employee really believes she can impress us." Hiroshi shifted in his chair. "Richard, perhaps it would be better—" No, Richard cut him off, raising a hand. "You need to understand how things work here. These people live in fantasy." He gestured dismissively at Jasmine, not even bothering to lower his voice. "I bet she watched a few kung fu movies and thinks she can impress you with a few loose words." Kenji Yamamoto frowned, his English perfect. "This is getting uncomfortable, Richard." "Uncomfortable?" Richard laughed loudly. "This is educational. You want to invest in New York? You need to understand reality." He pointed at Jasmine. "This woman probably didn't even finish high school. She works here because she's good for nothing else." Jasmine didn't flinch, but inside she felt something settle. Not anger. Resolve. Because she'd been underestimated in rooms far more brutal than this room's, where professors in Beijing would cut apart her pronunciation like surgeons if her tones were even slightly off. Let's establish the rules. She can make a convincing presentation in Chinese full menu descriptions, not a couple of words I pay her. If she fails, she kneels here and apologizes to everyone for wasting our time. The room went even quieter. A waiter froze mid-step. The humiliation had escalated from rude to ritual. Jasmine nodded once. "I accept all conditions." Richard's eyes widened in delighted disbelief. "Even kneeling and apologizing when you fail?" "If I fail, yes." He spread his arms theatrically toward the investors. "Gentlemen, you're about to witness the difference between confidence and delusion." Then he snapped his fingers at a waiter. "Bring the special Chinese menu, the one we use for Shanghai investors." The waiter hesitated. "Mr. Blackwood, that menu has over 40 dishes with technical descriptions." "Perfect," Richard said, smiling. "If she's an expert, she won't mind technical details." When the leather-bound menu arrived, Richard opened it and his expression shifted just slightly. The dense characters looked less like a joke and more like a wall. He quickly closed it, then shoved it toward Jasmine. "Go on, 5 dishes in detail." Jasmine opened the menu, scanned the first page, and almost smiled, because it wasn't a random menu. It was exactly the kind of regional culinary text she'd studied during research in Beijing, complete with terminology, origins, preparation notes, and cultural references. She looked up. "May I choose which dishes?" "So," she asked calmly. Richard laughed. "Choose the easiest. You're going to fail anyway." Jasmine's eyes moved to the investors. "Before I begin," she said, "I'd like to confirm something. Are you gentlemen fluent in Mandarin?" Hiroshi blinked. "A little." Kenji shook his head. Basics. Richard snorted. See? Already making excuses. Jasmine ignored him. She looked at the third investor, Yuki Sato, who had been quiet. Yuki sat up straighter. I'm fluent, he said slowly. I lived in Taiwan for 10 years. For the first time, Richard hesitated. He forced a laugh. Perfect, then we'll have an expert judge. Jasmine nodded. One more thing, she said. Voice smooth. You said this is about integrity. Let's make it more interesting. Richard leaned forward, curiosity and ego battling. How if I can describe 5 dishes in Mandarin? Jasmine said, and also explain their regional origins, preparation techniques, and cultural significance. You double the bet to 200,000. The silence was absolute. Even the pianist stopped. And if I fail, she continued, I will kneel, apologize, and work here for free for a full month. Richard stared at her. He wanted to refuse. You could see it. But with all eyes on him, especially the investors, he couldn't look weak. 200,000, he repeated slowly. Jasmine nodded. Correct. Hiroshi tried one last time. Richard, this has gone too far. Richard ignored him and extended his hand to Jasmine, smiling like he'd just trapped her. Deal. Jasmine shook his hand firmly. Deal. Then she took a breath. Not a nervous breath, a focused one. And when she began to speak in Mandarin, it wasn't restaurant Mandarin. It wasn't tourist Mandarin. It was precise, formal, academically clean. Mandarin tones perfect. Rhythm natural. Vocabulary rich. Yuki's eyes widened instantly, because she was real. Yuki swallowed, staring. That's it. Flawless. Jasmine continued without pause, presenting a Sichuan dish with the kind of detail that didn't just name ingredients. It explained philosophy. She spoke about balance, texture, tradition. She used terms you hear in kitchens and academic papers, not in movies. Richard blinked hard, confused. Wait, is that real Chinese? Yuki lifted a hand, almost offended on Jasmine's behalf. Richard, be quiet. Jasmine moved to the next dish, then the next, explaining origins, techniques, cultural meaning like she'd lived inside the language. Then she paused and looked at Richard with a calm smile that made him feel small. Would you like me to continue in Beijing dialect? He asked softly in English. Or Taiwanese Mandarin? Or Cantonese? Richard stammered. Different. Dialects? Jasmine answered him by switching into fluent Cantonese clean accent, natural cadence. Yuki exhaled sharply. That's authentic. And that's when Richard's ego finally cracked. Who the hell are you? He demanded, voice tight. Jasmine set the menu down gently. Then she spoke with the quiet authority of someone who has spent her life earning expertise the hard way. My name is Dr. Jasmine Williams, she said. I have a doctorate in linguistics. I taught at universities. I worked in international translation. I gave that up when my mother got sick and the bills destroyed my life. She held his gaze. You offered me money to do something I used to do professionally. But what you really wanted was to remind yourself you could humiliate me. Kenji looked sick. Richard, what kind of man are you? Hiroshi's voice was cold. You judged her because of her uniform. Jasmine leaned in slightly, not aggressive, just direct. You didn't know who I was, she said, but you assumed. You saw a black woman serving tables and decided she was less. Richard's hands shook now. His mouth opened, closed. No speech left. Yuki stood up. Our company was considering 200 million with you, he said. We are not anymore. Kenji nodded. Same. Hiroshi added, calm and final. We don't partner with cruelty. Richard panicked. Wait, this is a misunderstanding. Hiroshi cut him off. No, this is character. Jasmine looked down at the money on her tray. Mr. Blackwood, she said softly, you're 200,000. Richard, sweating, counted bills with trembling fingers. Each one landed like a piece of his pride being peeled away. When he finished, Jasmine didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply said, now apologize. Richard looked around. The entire restaurant was watching. Not amused now, judging. I apologize, he muttered. I didn't hear you, Jasmine said calmly. Followed hard, then said louder, I apologize. And in that moment, the room understood. This wasn't just a language test. It was a mirror. And Richard didn't like what it showed. Months later, Jasmine wasn't in a uniform. She was back in professional spaces again, rebuilding her life with people who respected competence instead of trying to buy control. Her mother got better care. Her sister got opportunities. And Richard Blackwood? He became a story that traveled through business circles like a warning. Money can rent attention, but it can't purchase class, intelligence, or dignity. Because the truth is simple, and it hits harder than any insult tossed onto a silver tray. If you try to humiliate someone just because you think you can, you better be sure they don't have a lifetime of skill waiting for the perfect moment to speak.